Yo, what's happening, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we have a double dose of Nintendo goodness, which is pretty exciting. These two pieces of news were probably something that I could have made a 48-minute long video about each. If you know me, that's just the thing that I do. I talk way too much. But I wanted to try to condense it a little bit, and these two things, in a weird way, I just felt kind of belonged in the same category in conversation. So I thought it would be interesting to do, again, not the week in review thing since I don't really do that, but to put a couple of topics in one video, and luckily, they both happen to be about Nintendo. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the big one. We all know that over the last couple of days, it was revealed that apparently another patent for Nintendo has mysteriously showed up, and it relates to some sort of new handheld device with a rumbling, vibrating technology, and it's got speakers and ABXY buttons, and it's a touchscreen, and it's all these different things. I think it was called an information sharing device or some sort of phrasing like that was used to describe it. And in no big surprise, like I said, it's just another patent. So these things have been all over the place the last, year or so with Nintendo, mostly because we're trying to dig into what's happening with Nintendo and the NX and this crazy mystery so heavily. And through that, all of these patents have been being discovered. And it's hard to know if there are just more patents floating around that Nintendo is filing than normal or than most other companies do, or if it's just because there's such a fervor to discover, or I should even say uncover, the mystery that is the NX, that people are just finding these patents more and they're becoming more newsworthy. Either way, it's another in a long list of patents that we have been discussing on the internet since it was discovered, basically, again, these last couple of days. And I wanted to touch on my thoughts about it. And to tell you the truth, I don't really think it's that big of a deal. I mean, because it's like the third or fourth patent reveal that we've dealt with coming from Nintendo in this mysterious build-up to the NX reveal and release, and because it doesn't really seem like there's anything revelatory in this. There's one interesting thing I could maybe glean from it that I'll get to at the end, but ultimately, I mean, you've probably seen the patent and seen the pictures, and it basically just looks like a little cell phone or a little touchscreen device. It could be a handheld. It could be a successor to the 3DS. It could be a controller for the NX. It could be the handheld version of the console handheld hybrid version of the NX, if in fact it turns out to be that. It could be all of these different things. It could be something else completely unrelated, or, as is probably usually the case, it could be something that never even comes to fruition. As we all know, not every patent that exists for any company, be it a video game company or a car company or a jewelry company, not every patent that every company makes actually becomes a thing or actually becomes a product. It would be interesting to see if something like this comes out, but ultimately, it's nothing new. I mean, right now it's been 6 years almost, 5 or 6 years since the 3DS came out, and 4 years since the Wii U came out, almost 4 years. So for the last 4 to 6 or so years, we've had Nintendo products that are handheld devices in some fashion that have a touchscreen on them and ABXY buttons and speakers and all of these different things. The Wii U gamepad and, of course, the 3DS and the DS. So, I mean, gosh, the DS, Jesus, that goes back to 2004. So there you go. So I don't want to, poo-poo on this, and I don't want to I'm not, of course, trying to be negative. If you know me, that's not really what I tend to do, especially about Nintendo. But I do think that this thing being newsworthy it's just kind of obvious, and I just don't think that anyone should get too deep into trying to discover and put together the mysterious pieces to this puzzle of what is this new patent, what is this device. I mean, it could be something amazing, it could be something surprising, it could be something that's real, but I just don't think that there's any new information here. I mean, what about this thing is so crazy? It's not different than anything we've been doing with Nintendo products currently. And it also is just another patent that builds off of other patents we've already seen that we think might relate to the NX. When we saw the initial patent of that weird controller thing that became the faked thing that the guy made the Photoshop picture and then he used this 3D printer to make an actual controller. I mean, that was another touchscreen handheld device patent with the same drawings and the same little images in it that are in this new one. So, I want a second screen experience, especially for Nintendo's games, to continue. I think that's great. I love my 3DS. I hope the next handheld does something similar. I love the Wii U, and because that gamepad controller is so great, I want that to continue. We've talked about it many times, both myself and then also on the podcast that I do, The Juice is Loose. We've talked about how Zelda Breath of the Wild will be better if it uses the Wii U gamepad or a second screen experience, because we've been spoiled by other Wii U games that do that. Big open world games like Xenoblade and like the other previous Zeldas. I think that that's great. So I would like to see this have something to do with that kind of gaming experience for the NX going forward. But I just want to remind people, this is nothing new. This is exactly what we've been doing with Nintendo products for a while. So like I said, maybe it turns into something great. The only thing I could maybe see this turning into is like a cell phone. That's the one thing that I think this might actually be lending some credence to. It's something that people haven't talked about too much, and I've actually thought about it for a while. You know, we're here on in the following few days, the aftermath of the release of Pokemon Go, which is taking the planet by freaking storm right now. Apparently, it's just the greatest thing ever. And we know that Nintendo launched Miitomo, and it was a huge success as well. We know they're doing a lot of things with the mobile going forward and waiting for more and more of those things to come out. And with the success of things like Miitomo and Pokemon Go, it's entirely possible that part of what Nintendo's future structure is to do something like make a cell phone or make a device that can have a cellular service but also still be some sort of gaming device. I don't know if I love that idea or not. I think it would be great if it was something completely separate from their console and their dedicated gaming handheld like a 3DS or a successor. Then I would be actually totally fine with it. I think it would be a very smart move. My fear is that it would be the kind of thing that's meant to either replace their handheld or merge their traditional, actual, real hardcore gaming console and handhelds with like this mobile sort of initiative going forward. And if it's a merging or if it's a replacement of current hardware, that's the thing I won't like, and that would make me nervous. But I fully support Nintendo having a completely separate entity, separate business model, and separate gaming structure for something in like a cellular device. And maybe, just maybe, that's what this thing is. So the other quick piece of Nintendo news I think is definitely pretty interesting. It was recently revealed that initially, leading up to the Wii U's launch, Nintendo had hoped or projected themselves to sell 100 million Wii U's. And as we all know, now in 2016, when we have 3.5 years of hindsight, it's easy to say, oh my God, Nintendo, are you crazy? What were you possibly thinking? And I get that. I mean, the number seems astronomically unachievable for the Wii U by 2016 standards. Now, when you look back to 2011 and 2012 in the build up to the release of the system and what Nintendo probably thought they had when they were even making the system back when it was Project Cafe and no one really knew what it was going to be except for people at Nintendo, it's hard to completely fault them for thinking, wow, we just made this weird casual kind of motion control, unique control console, the Wii, that was 1,000 times more successful than even our wildest hopes and dreams, and it made us a bunch of money, and that's great. And they were trying to recapture it. Make no bones about it, they wanted to do the exact same thing that the Wii did in so many different facets. And I can't blame them for doing that. I think that they actually made, you know me, I love the Wii U, so I think they made an extremely capable, competent, excellent console for what it is. And so, you know, thinking that they could recapture that makes a lot of sense. And of course, until the thing actually released and people got their hands on it and people either bought it or didn't buy it and reviewed it and liked it or didn't like it, there's no reason for them to think anything else. And hey, if we're lucky, we can do the same thing again. If they believe in their product, and they definitely believed in it at first, then there's no reason to really blame them for thinking that maybe they could achieve that same kind of success. I don't think it's arrogance. I think it's a comfortable level of confidence, and I think it completely makes sense. It absolutely fits the human brain and the business model of success. Both of those things, it works within those realms. So, hey, the Wii was a huge hit. They were making a successor to the Wii that they thought was going to be a better machine. They thought it would also be a huge hit. So it didn't turn out to be a huge hit. I think that sucks. I mean, I do think there's an argument to be made that in some degree, maybe Nintendo should have been able to see the writing on the wall ahead of time. I think that they could have, and they even probably should have, I will say that they should have, even though I love the system, they should have invested and risked a little bit more this time around. I think that they still did, what they ultimately did was they still played it a little too safe with the Wii U. That's obvious. It's been discussed by many people, myself included, on a lot of videos. They played it too safe. They were like, oh, we can save a lot of money by not making it this huge next generation leap in technology, make it underpowered, don't put a hard drive in there. We're going to focus on this unique controller instead, and that's where a lot of our money and R&D is going to go. And I think that their heart was in the right place. You know, I really, really do. And to me, that counts a lot, even with the other companies who I do, of course, still enjoy, even though Nintendo's my favorite. I think that when your heart's in the right place, that does count for something. But ultimately, I think Nintendo still was like, oh yeah, we don't need to spend enough of all this money. We don't need to make it this, that, and the other. All people need is just these bare essential things that are really cheap and simple, and it'll be a hit, just like the Wii was. And you know what? They should have kind of been able to figure out that was a little bit of a lightning in a bottle scenario, which is an analogy many people have used, and I think is very true. And known that, okay, to build on that success, they shouldn't have tried to like carbon copy repeat it, which they ultimately did kind of try to do, make a cookie cutter business model of what the Wii was and apply it to a slightly more powerful machine with a still unique but still very different control at the same time. They tried to do a cookie cutter version of that model, and they should have been like, okay, we can't do that. We need to take the foundation, the skeleton of what we did before that was so successful, and improve and evolve it. They didn't evolve the business model. They just kind of copied it and made slight tweaks and adjustments. And so unfortunately, when you see that the other companies, they had very powerful machines by comparison, and they had all the third-party support that Nintendo admittedly tried to get and ultimately couldn't, they should have known that it wasn't going to be the exact same level of hits. So maybe, just maybe, 100 million was a little too lofty of a goal. But again, I still can't fault them at the end of the day for still thinking their machine was going to be successful. And even though we do have the hindsight, and the ability to say, obviously, it was never going to be that successful. It only sold 13 freaking million units compared to its competition, which destroyed it. I still think it's a great machine. I will always say they made a quality product that has an amazing exclusive library. And it's too bad it wasn't a bigger hit. I will very confidently say, okay, the Wii U, there's no reason to think that in 2012 to 2016, it should have sold 50 or 70 million units. There's no reason to think that it should be selling that much. But I do think 4 years in, with the quality machine I think it is, I think it should be at least at 30 million. And it's really sad that Nintendo couldn't have righted the wrongs earlier on. And it's really sad that enough gamers didn't still pick up on how good of a machine it is and how great most of the games available for it are. But it is what it is. This is the world we live in. And sadly, Nintendo's extremely high goals were unable to be achieved. And it sold 13 million units. And we're getting NX next year. So I guess we're just going to see how that plays out. So anyway, this is, other than typical format of me talking to you with some gameplay footage, this was a little bit different for me, but I actually enjoyed taking two Nintendo topics and kind of mashing them together. Very interesting stuff coming from both camps. Maybe all my poo-pooing on the excitement and the fervor over that patent turns out to be totally wrong, and it's going to be this crazy thing, and I should be more excited for it than I am. But I just can't, you guys. I think that if it was a patent for like a Nintendo branded like oven, like a cookie baking machine, it'd be like, what the hell is that thing? But it's a handheld touchscreen device. It's like Nintendo's done that a couple of times. It doesn't have any unique features in the patent that haven't been on the DS, 3DS, or the Wii U gamepad. So that's why I'm not looking too deeply into it. But either way, I'm going to shut up and end this video. What do you guys think about these Nintendo topics? What do you think about the patent? Does it seem interesting? Is it as uninteresting and exciting as I found it? Or do you think that it actually is a big deal and maybe I should be looking more into it and other people should as well? What do you think about Nintendo's crazy goals to sell 100 million Wii U's and the fact that it didn't come anywhere close? Share your thoughts about all this stuff below. Thanks, of course, as always, for tuning in, guys. This is Rob of Rule to Review, and I'll catch you guys next time on another video.